The cargo bay of the Zephyrian transport ship hummed with alien conversations as Marcus Chen sat alone in the corner, his human form drawing curious glances from the various species aboard. His worn leather jacket and simple Earth clothing made him stand out among the elaborate biosuits and energy armor of his fellow passengers. The other beings whispered in their native tongues, pointing at the solitary human with what he could only assume were expressions of amusement or pity. Marcus had boarded the transport at Station Nexus 7, paying his passage with the last of his credits to reach the Outer Rim colonies, Earth's first and only representative to venture this far into unexplored space. He carried nothing but basic supplies and an old plasma pistol that most aliens would consider primitive technology. The weapon had been his father's, a relic from humanity's early space exploration days, and it was all he had left of home. Across the bay, a group of Krillian warriors flexed their chitinous exoskeletons and displayed their bio-enhanced claws to each other. Their species was known throughout the galaxy for their hunting prowess and territorial nature. Each Krillian stood nearly 8 feet tall, with razor-sharp natural weapons and the ability to track prey across star systems. They had been discussing the human in their clicking language, occasionally bursting into what Marcus assumed was laughter. The largest Krillian, whose carapace bore the scars of countless battles, approached Marcus with slow, deliberate steps. His compound eyes reflected the dim lighting as he towered over the seated human. The creature's translator device crackled to life, converting his harsh clicks into standard galactic speech. "Small flesh thing," the Krillian said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You travel far from your world nest. Do you not know these sectors are dangerous for weak species?" Marcus looked up calmly, his dark eyes meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "I am aware of the risks," he replied simply, his voice steady despite the implied threat. The Krillian's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Your kind has no natural weapons, no enhanced biology, no pack structure. How do you expect to survive when real predators hunt?" The other Krillians had gathered behind their leader, their claws extending slightly in anticipation. "Humans have survived this long," Marcus said, leaning back against the bulkhead. "We must be doing something right." This response sent the Krillians into a frenzy of clicking sounds. The leader's translator struggled to keep up with their rapid exchanges. But Marcus caught words like arrogant and prey-blind. The largest warrior leaned closer, his breath smelling of sulfur and decay. "Perhaps you need demonstration of your place in food chain. Soft skin?" The Krillian's claw moved toward Marcus's throat, stopping just inches away. "In our territory, humans are considered delicacy. Very tender meat." The transport ship's other passengers had gone silent, watching the confrontation with mixed expressions of curiosity and unease. A group of reptilian saurians whispered among themselves, while several insectoid Vextar clicked their approval of the Krillian's dominance display. None moved to intervene, as challenging a Krillian hunting party was generally considered suicide by most species. Marcus remained perfectly still, his expression unchanged. "Threatening passengers violates transport regulations," he said conversationally. "But I suppose rules don't apply to apex predators." The Krillian leader's eyes narrowed at what he perceived as mockery. "You make jokes when death stands before you? Your species truly is defective." He raised his claw higher, the sharp tip gleaming under the artificial lights. "Captain Vorthak to all passengers," came an announcement over the ship's communication system. "We are approaching the Kepler debris field. All passengers must remain seated and secured during navigation. Any disturbances will result in immediate ejection into space." The Krillian reluctantly lowered his claw, but his threatening posture remained. "This conversation continues later, human. When we reach colony stations, you will learn proper respect for superior species." He returned to his group, but their eyes never left Marcus. As the ship began its careful navigation through the treacherous asteroid field, Marcus pulled out a small datapad and began reviewing star charts of the Outer Rim territories. He appeared completely absorbed in his research, occasionally making notes with a simple stylus. To the casual observer, he looked like any other traveler planning his next destination. What the aliens didn't notice was how Marcus's eyes constantly tracked their movements in the reflection of his datapad screen. His seemingly relaxed posture allowed him to monitor the entire cargo bay, while appearing vulnerable and distracted. Years of military training on Earth had taught him to gather intelligence while projecting weakness, a skill that served him well among species that judged threats purely by physical appearance. The Saurian merchants near the viewport were discussing trade routes in hushed tones, but Marcus picked up mentions of recent pirate attacks and missing ships. The Vextar delegation seemed nervous about something, their antennae twitching rapidly as they communicated through pheromone releases. Even the peaceful Aquarian diplomats appeared tense, their bioluminescent patches flickering with stress patterns. As the hours passed, Marcus learned more about his fellow passengers than they realized. The Krillian hunting party was traveling to establish a new territory on Outpost Gamma 12. The Saurian merchants were fleeing increasing violence in the core systems. The Vextar were seeking new colonies after their homeworld was stripped of resources. All of them saw the Outer Rim as either opportunity or last resort. When the ship cleared the debris field and began its final approach to the transfer station, the captain announced they would have a 6-hour layover for refueling and cargo transfers. Most passengers began gathering their belongings, eager to stretch their limbs and escape the cramped transport. The Krillian leader approached Marcus one final time as they prepared to disembark. "Remember our words, human. The Outer Rim has no protection for weak species. You would be wise to book passage back to your safe little world." Marcus stood slowly, shouldering his simple pack. Despite being dwarfed by the alien warrior, he showed no sign of intimidation. "Thank you for the advice," he said politely. "I'll keep it in mind." As they filed off the transport onto the bustling transfer station, Marcus disappeared into the crowd of diverse alien species. The Krillians watched him go, already dismissing the lone human as just another naive explorer who would likely become someone's meal within a few days. They had no idea they had just encountered Earth's most dangerous export, and their casual threats had marked them for a type of hunting they could never imagine. Transfer Station Omega-7 bustled with activity as beings from dozens of species conducted business in the sprawling commercial hub. The station's artificial gravity varied between sections to accommodate different physiologies, and the air mixture changed subtly as atmospheric processors adjusted for various breathing requirements. Marcus moved through the crowds with practiced ease, his human appearance allowing him to blend in among the more common bipedal species. The Krillian hunting party had taken up residence in the station's warrior quarter, a section specifically designed for predatory species with high-protein dietary needs and combat training facilities. They made no effort to hide their presence, their imposing forms and aggressive posturing clearing paths wherever they went. Other species gave them wide berths, recognizing the telltale signs of apex predators establishing territorial dominance. Marcus observed their behavior from a distance, noting their patterns and preferences. The Krillians frequented the combat arenas where they sparred with mechanical opponents, their natural weapons easily slicing through advanced alloy training dummies. They consumed large quantities of raw protein at specialized feeding stations, their acidic digestive systems capable of breaking down nearly any organic matter. Most importantly, they spoke freely about their plans, confident that no other species posed a threat to their operations. Through careful eavesdropping and strategic positioning near their favorite gathering spots, Marcus learned that the Krillian pack planned to establish a hunting preserve on Outpost Gamma 12. They had already identified several soft species in the area that would provide both sport and sustenance. The pack leader, who went by the name Thrakmor, boasted about his collection of trophies from various sentient species, describing in graphic detail how he preferred to hunt intelligent prey. What disturbed Marcus most was their casual discussion of human colonies in the Outer Rim. The Krillians had apparently encountered isolated human settlements before, and considered them easy targets. They spoke of humans like livestock, debating whether the meat was better when the prey was terrified or resigned to their fate. Thrakmor carried what appeared to be a human skull modified into a drinking cup, a trophy he used to intimidate other species. While gathering intelligence, Marcus also learned about the station's security systems and layout. Omega-7 operated under minimal oversight, with private security forces that were more interested in protecting commercial interests than investigating disappearances. The warrior quarter had even fewer restrictions, operating under the assumption that strong species could police themselves. It was the perfect environment for someone to vanish without questions being asked. Marcus spent 2 days studying his targets, learning their individual habits and identifying their strengths and weaknesses. Thrakmor was clearly the alpha, a massive specimen with enhanced biomodifications that made him faster and stronger than typical Krillians. His lieutenant Vrexkai specialized in tracking and had sensory organs capable of following scent trails across multiple star systems. The third member, Zarthok, was younger but eager to prove himself, often taking unnecessary risks to gain status within the pack. On the third day, Marcus made his move. He approached the Krillians at their preferred feeding station, carrying a bottle of Terran whiskey he had purchased from a human trader. The alcohol was rare in this sector and commanded high prices among species that could process ethanol. The Krillians looked up from their meal as he approached, their mandibles clicking with surprise at his boldness. "Thought you might enjoy trying something from my homeworld," Marcus said, placing the bottle on their table. "Consider it a peace offering." Thrackmore examined the bottle with obvious suspicion. "What trick is this, Softskin? Do you think gifts will save you from your fate?" "No trick," Marcus replied calmly. "I've been thinking about what you said on the transport, about humans being weak and defenseless. You're probably right. Maybe I should learn from stronger species." The Krillians exchanged glances, their translator devices struggling with rapid clicks and hisses. Vrexkai leaned forward, his enhanced olfactory organs analyzing Marcus's scent for signs of deception. "You smell of resignation, fear sweat masked by false confidence. This one accepts his place in hierarchy." Zarthok grabbed the bottle and examined the amber liquid inside. "Is this fermented plant matter? I have heard some species use such substances to dull pain before feeding." "Something like that," Marcus said with a slight smile. "It's supposed to make you feel stronger, more confident. Warriors on Earth drink it before battles." Thrackmore's eyes gleamed with interest. "Your warriors consume liquid courage? How pathetic. Krillians need no artificial enhancement for combat." Despite his words, he gestured for Zarthok to open the bottle. The young Krillian bit through the cork with his razor teeth, spitting the fragments aside. The smell of aged whiskey filled the air, drawing curious looks from other diners. Zarthok took the first taste, his biochemistry immediately analyzing the alcohol content and composition. "Ethanol concentration is significant," he reported to his pack leader. "No toxins detected that would affect Krillian physiology. Flavor compounds suggest complex fermentation process." Vrexkai sampled the whiskey next, his sensory organs cataloging every chemical component. "Interesting complexity. No artificial additives. This appears to be authentic fermented grain alcohol." Thrackmore took the bottle and consumed a large portion in one gulp. His throat worked to process the burning sensation, but his enhanced constitution easily handled the alcohol. "Weak drink for weak species," he pronounced. "But not unpleasant." "There's more where that came from," Marcus said. "I'm meeting a trader later who has access to other Earth beverages, some much stronger than this." The Krillians shared another rapid exchange in their native language. Marcus didn't need a translator to understand their interest. Rare substances from distant worlds were valuable commodities in the Outer Rim, and the warrior mentality of their species made them curious about anything that claimed to enhance combat performance. "Where does this meeting occur?" Thrackmore demanded. "If you speak truth about stronger drinks, we may be interested in acquisition." Marcus pretended to check his data pad. "Cargo Bay 7, Level 15. The restricted section. My contact prefers privacy for these transactions." He paused as if considering something. "Of course, if you're concerned about security." Vrexkai's crest flared with indignation. "Krillians fear no trap from lesser species. We have hunted in places that would liquefy your bones with fear." "Then you'll come?" Marcus asked, his tone carefully neutral. Thrackmore finished the whiskey and slammed the empty bottle down. "We will investigate your claim, human. But if this is deception, your death will be slow and public. Other species will learn the cost of lying to Krillian hunters." "Understood," Marcus replied. Midnight, Cargo Bay 7. Level 15, Section 12. "Come alone if you want to keep the good stuff for yourselves." As he walked away, Marcus could hear the Krillians already planning how they would divide any valuable substances they acquired. Their greed and arrogance blinded them to the possibility that a weak human might be leading them into a carefully prepared trap. They saw only opportunity, never considering that their casual threats and boastful violence had marked them as targets for a predator they couldn't comprehend. The cargo bay he had specified was indeed restricted, but not for the reasons they might expect. It was one of several areas on the station that suffered from maintenance issues with surveillance equipment, and the section he had chosen was currently listed as being fumigated for pest control. No one would disturb whatever happened there, and any sounds would be attributed to normal station operations. Marcus had 6 hours to complete his preparations. Cargo Bay 7 was a vast space designed for storing bulk materials between transport runs. Massive shipping containers created a maze of corridors and hiding spots, while overhead gantries and loading equipment cast deep shadows throughout the area. The environmental systems had been temporarily shut down for the supposed fumigation, leaving the air thick and still. Emergency lighting provided minimal illumination, creating pools of dim red light separated by stretches of darkness. Marcus arrived 2 hours before the scheduled meeting, using a maintenance access tunnel to avoid security sensors. His simple appearance had been carefully cultivated, as most species underestimated humans based on their lack of obvious natural weapons or enhanced biology. What they didn't understand was that humanity's greatest advantage had always been their ability to adapt and innovate. Turning any environment into a weapon, the cargo bay's layout worked perfectly for his purposes. He had studied the station's structural plans and identified several key points where the Krillians' size and hunting instincts would work against them. The narrow passages between containers would force them to move single file, while their predatory nature would make them pursue what they perceived as fleeing prey. Marcus spent his preparation time setting up carefully concealed traps and escape routes, using equipment he had quietly acquired from various station vendors. A length of industrial cable became a tripwire, positioned at ankle height where the Krillians' compound eyes would be focused on potential threats ahead rather than below. Maintenance foam, typically used for emergency hull repairs, was rigged to deploy from overhead dispensers when triggered by motion sensors. The expanding polymer would harden rapidly in the cool air, creating an adhesive trap that even Krillian strength would struggle to break. Marcus positioned several small charges of mining explosive at structural stress points throughout the bay. The charges were barely powerful enough to crack shipping container seals, but when detonated in sequence, they would create a cascade of falling debris that would funnel his targets into predetermined paths. Each element of his preparation built upon the others, creating a complex web of overlapping threats that would overwhelm even enhanced predatory senses. At 11:45, Marcus took position in an observation nook high above the main floor. His black clothing and careful positioning made him nearly invisible in the shadows, while his elevated vantage point gave him clear sight lines throughout the bay. He had disabled several lighting fixtures to create additional blind spots, ensuring the Krillians would be operating at a disadvantage despite their enhanced vision. The sound of claws scraping against metal announced the arrival of his targets. The 3 Krillians entered through the main access portal, their massive forms moving with the fluid grace of apex predators. They paused just inside the threshold, their sensory organs analyzing the environment for potential threats or prey. HFY's tracking abilities immediately detected Marcus's scent trail, but the deliberately confusing path he had laid would require time to unravel. Human scent is strong here, HFY reported to his pack leader. Multiple trails overlap. Prey has been here recently. Thrackmore's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Good. When we finish with drink trading, we take him for sport. Station security will assume accident and fumigation zone. The Krillians began moving deeper into the bay, following what they believed was Marcus's most recent trail. Their confidence was absolute, as no prey had ever successfully evaded their combined hunting abilities. They moved in a standard pack formation, with Thrackmore taking point while HFY tracked and Zarthok watched for flanking attacks. Marcus waited until they were committed to their path before activating the first trap. A soft pneumatic hiss marked the release of maintenance foam from dispensers positioned directly above their location. The expanding polymer caught Zarthok completely off guard, coating his upper carapace in one arm before he could react. The young Krillian thrashed against the rapidly hardening substance, his claws scraping uselessly against the chemical bonds. Ambush! Thrackmore roared, his bio-enhanced reflexes already scanning for the source of the attack. Show yourself, coward. Face us with honor. Instead of revealing himself, Marcus triggered the second phase of his trap. The small explosive charges detonated in careful sequence, bringing down a wall of shipping containers between Thrackmore and his trapped packmate. The massive leader found himself separated from his team, forced to choose between helping Zarthok and pursuing their invisible attacker. Vrexkai attempted to use his enhanced senses to locate Marcus, but the human had prepared for this as well. He had scattered scent-masking agents throughout the bay, compounds that would confuse even the most sophisticated tracking organs. The overlapping chemical signatures created a maze of false trails that led in every direction, except toward Marcus's actual position. From his hidden perch, Marcus observed the Krillians' response to his attack. Their military precision was impressive, but they were operating according to instincts developed for hunting in open terrain or organized battlefields. The industrial environment with its artificial constraints and hidden dangers was outside their experience. They were apex predators, but this was not their natural hunting ground. Thrakmor began systematically clearing potential hiding spots, using his enhanced strength to tear apart shipping containers and scatter their contents. His rage was building with each empty discovery, the humiliation of being outmaneuvered by prey, driving him to increasingly reckless behavior. This was exactly what Marcus had anticipated. "You cannot hide forever, Softskin," the pack leader bellowed. "When I find you, your death will last for days." Marcus triggered the industrial cable trap as Thrakmor charged past, sending the massive alien tumbling into a stack of metal crates. The impact would have killed most species, but Krillian biology was designed to absorb tremendous physical trauma. Thrakmor rolled to his feet almost immediately, though his carapace showed stress fractures from the collision. Meanwhile, Vrexkai had begun to unravel the false scent trails through systematic analysis. His tracking abilities were sophisticated enough to distinguish between fresh and older chemical signatures, allowing him to gradually eliminate false leads. Marcus realized he had perhaps 10 minutes before the tracker would locate his actual position. Time for a more direct approach. Marcus dropped from his perch onto a shipping container directly above Vrexkai's position. The tracker's enhanced hearing detected the soft impact, but by the time he looked up, Marcus was already in motion. The human's primitive plasma pistol discharged with a sharp crack, the energy bolt striking Vrexkai's primary sensory cluster and overloading his enhanced organs with massive electromagnetic interference. The tracker screamed in pain and confusion as his biological systems struggled to process the sensory overload. His carefully tuned organs, designed to detect the faintest chemical traces across vast distances, became liabilities when overwhelmed with conflicting data. He stumbled blindly through the cargo bay, his navigation completely compromised. Thrakmor heard his packmate's distress and changed direction, abandoning his systematic search to come to Vrexkai's aid. This was the emotional response Marcus had been counting on. For all their predatory efficiency, Krillians were still pack animals with strong social bonds. Their loyalty to packmates created predictable behavior patterns that could be exploited by a patient hunter. As the pack leader approached his injured teammate, Marcus was already moving to his next position. The carefully planned trap was entering its final phase, where the Krillians' own strengths would become their greatest weaknesses. They had dismissed the lone human as weak prey, never considering that humans had spent millennia becoming the most dangerous predators their own world had ever produced. The hunt was about to begin in earnest. The cargo bay had become a hunting ground unlike anything the Krillians had ever experienced. Their traditional advantages meant nothing in this artificial environment, where shadows concealed threats and every sound could be misdirection. Marcus moved through the maze of containers like a ghost, his human heritage granting him abilities that no alien species truly understood. While other species had evolved specialized organs for specific environments, humans had developed something far more dangerous: adaptability. Every sense could be trained, every instinct could be refined, and every environment could become home to a patient hunter. Marcus had spent years perfecting skills that made him invisible to species with far superior senses, learning to move without disturbing air currents and to mask his presence among industrial sounds. Thrakmor reached his injured packmate and immediately began assessing Vrexkai's condition. The tracker's sensory organs were slowly recovering from the electromagnetic overload, but his spatial awareness remained severely compromised. Clear fluid leaked from his damaged sensory clusters, and his movements were unsteady as his nervous system struggled to re-establish normal function. "Can you track the human?" Thrakmor demanded, his voice tight with controlled fury. Vrexkai attempted to focus his remaining functional sensors, but the effort caused visible pain. "Scent patterns are chaotic. Cannot distinguish fresh trails from false ones. Need time to recalibrate. Time we do not have, the pack leader growled. Zarthok is still trapped, and the human grows bolder with each attack. As if summoned by his words, another explosion echoed through the bay. This time, Marcus had detonated charges near Zarthok's position, not to harm the young Krillian directly, but to bring down additional debris that would make freeing him even more difficult. The psychological effect was as important as the physical obstacle. Each new complication reinforced the message that the Krillians were no longer the hunters in this scenario. Marcus observed their growing frustration from a new position. He had relocated during their conversation, using maintenance tunnels that ran behind the container stacks. His knowledge of the station's infrastructure gave him three-dimensional mobility that the Krillians couldn't match. They were thinking like ground-based predators, while he was operating like something that could appear from any direction. The plasma pistol's energy pack was running low after the attack on Vrexkai, but Marcus had prepared for this limitation. Hidden throughout the bay were weapons and tools he had crafted from station materials. A maintenance laser cutter had been modified into a directed energy weapon. Industrial adhesives had been weaponized into area denial systems. Even simple construction materials became lethal when employed by someone who understood physics, and Leverage Thrakmor made a tactical decision that revealed both his military training and his species pack mentality. We regroup with Zarthok, establish defensive position, and force the human to come to us. It was a sound strategy against most opponents, but Marcus wasn't bound by conventional tactics. As the two Krillians moved toward their trapped packmate, he activated the final phase of his preparation. Throughout the bay, small charges began detonating in sequence, each explosion carefully timed to create a symphony of destruction that would mask his movements and disorient his targets. The cascading failures began with the overhead lighting system. Emergency illumination flickered and died as power conduits were severed, plunging large sections of the bay into complete darkness. Environmental controls followed, causing temperature fluctuations that would interfere with thermal sensors. Finally, the gravitational field generators began to destabilize, creating pockets of altered gravity that would disrupt the Krillians' natural movement patterns. In the chaos of failing systems, Marcus struck again. The modified laser cutter emerged from a hidden panel as Thrakmor passed beneath, its invisible beam slicing through the pack leader's rear carapace with surgical precision. The wound was shallow but painful, designed to limit mobility rather than kill immediately. Marcus wanted his targets to understand what was happening to them. Thrakmor spun toward the source of the attack, his bio-enhanced reflexes finally tracking his attacker's position. For a moment, human and Krillian stared at each other across the darkened bay. The alien warrior saw a figure that appeared completely unremarkable. Average height, basic equipment, no visible enhancements or natural weapons. Yet this ordinary-looking being had systematically dismantled a pack of apex predators with casual efficiency. "What are you?" Thrakmor whispered, his translator struggling with the mixture of rage and fear in his voice. Marcus stepped into a pool of emergency lighting, his face calm and almost gentle. "I'm just a human," he said quietly. "The kind you threatened to hunt for sport." The pack leader's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this information. In his species' culture, prey that fought back was still prey. The concept of a hunting relationship reversing completely was beyond his understanding. Krillians were apex predators by biological design. It was impossible for lesser species to threaten them effectively. "Impossible," Thrakmor snarled. "Humans are weak, soft. No claws, no enhanced biology, no pack coordination. You cannot be threat to Krillian hunter." "You're right," Marcus agreed, pulling out a simple combat knife that looked primitive compared to alien technology. "We don't have claws or enhanced biology, but we have something else." He gestured around the transformed cargo bay where every system had been turned into a weapon and every space had become a trap. "We have imagination." Vrexkai had been quietly working to restore his tracking abilities while his pack leader was distracted. His damaged sensors finally achieved minimal function, allowing him to detect Marcus's true scent signature among the chemical chaos. What he discovered sent ice through his predatory instincts. The human's biochemical signature was completely wrong for prey behavior. Instead of stress hormones and fear markers, Vrexkai detected the complex chemical mixture associated with an apex predator in full hunt mode. Adrenaline balanced with calculated control, focus chemicals that indicated strategic thinking, and underneath it all, the cold satisfaction of a hunter who knew his prey was already dead. "Thrakmor," Vrexkai whispered urgently. "His scent? This is not prey. This is hunter scent. Apex hunter scent." The pack leader's compound eyes widened as he finally understood what they were facing. Humans weren't weak because they lacked natural weapons. They were dangerous because they had learned to make weapons from everything around them. They weren't vulnerable because they had no enhanced biology. They were terrifying because they had enhanced their minds instead. Marcus watched understanding dawn in the alien's eyes with calm satisfaction. "Your species judges threats by physical appearance," he said conversationally. "That's why you never saw this coming. Humans learned a long time ago that the most dangerous predators don't look like predators at all." The combat knife in his hand was just steel and polymer, ancient technology by galactic standards. But in the hands of someone who understood anatomy and leverage, it was more lethal than any bio-enhanced claw. Marcus had studied Krillian physiology during his preparation time, identifying weak points in their seemingly impenetrable armor and vulnerable spots in their enhanced biology. Thrakmor raised his own natural weapons, claws that could slice through military-grade armor with ease. But as he prepared to charge, another realization struck him. Every move he made was being anticipated. Every tactical choice was being countered before he could execute it. The human wasn't just winning this confrontation, he was controlling it completely. "You wanted to hunt humans for sport," Marcus said, beginning to circle his opponent with predatory grace. "Let me show you what it feels like to be the prey." The confrontation between Marcus and Thrakmor played out in the strobing emergency lights, like a deadly dance choreographed by predatory instincts spanning different evolutionary paths. The Krillian pack leader moved with the fluid grace of a creature designed for killing, his bio-enhanced muscles propelling him forward with devastating speed. But Marcus was no longer there when the claws arrived. Human combat doctrine had been forged in the crucible of Earth's most dangerous environments, where survival meant outthinking rather than overpowering threats. Marcus used the container maze to his advantage, never allowing Thrakmor to bring his superior strength and natural weapons to bear in direct confrontation. Instead, he employed hit-and-run tactics that turned the alien's aggression into a liability. Each exchange lasted only seconds. Marcus would appear from shadow or concealment, strike with surgical precision at vulnerable joints or sensory organs, then vanish before Thrakmor could retaliate. The combat knife found gaps in chitinous armor that bioenhancement had left exposed, while carefully placed impacts disrupted the Krillian's enhanced nervous system. It was death by 1,000 cuts, each wound minor but cumulative in effect. Vrexkai attempted to assist his pack leader, but his damaged tracking organs made him more hindrance than help. His spatial awareness remained compromised, causing him to stumble into traps Marcus had prepared for pursuing enemies. Sticky foam dispensers activated when the tracker blundered into motion sensors, while concealed tripwires sent him crashing into container walls with bone-jarring impacts. Meanwhile, Zarthok continued his increasingly desperate struggles against the hardened maintenance foam. The young Krillian's enhanced strength was impressive, but the polymer matrix had been designed to contain industrial accidents involving heavy machinery. His claws could scratch the surface, but breaking free would require tools or assistance that wasn't coming. Marcus paused in his systematic dismantling of the Krillian pack to address their trapped member. "You know," he called out conversationally, "your pack leader was telling me about his trophy collection. Human skulls, apparently. Real conversation starter at parties." Zarthok's thrashing intensified as rage overcame strategic thinking. "We are apex hunters. Krillians do not become prey. That's where you're wrong," Marcus replied, appearing briefly in a shaft of emergency lighting before melting back into shadows. "Every species becomes prey when they encounter something higher on the food chain." Thrakmor's injuries were beginning to affect his performance. The laser cut across his rear carapace limited his mobility, while numerous knife wounds leaked clear fluid that carried away essential nutrients from his enhanced biology. More importantly, his confidence was shattered. For the first time in his existence, he was experiencing what his own victims had felt, the helpless terror of being systematically hunted by a superior predator. "Your species made a fundamental error," Marcus continued, his voice seeming to come from multiple directions simultaneously. You assumed that physical enhancement was the only path to evolutionary success, but humans took a different route. A thrown piece of debris struck Thrackmore's head, causing him to stumble and reveal his position to another hidden trap. Adhesive strips deployed from concealed dispensers, wrapping around his legs and anchoring him in place long enough for Marcus to strike again. This time, the combat knife found the nerve cluster controlling the Krillian's left arm, causing the limb to go numb and unresponsive. We enhanced our minds instead of our bodies, Marcus explained as Thrackmore struggled against the adhesive bonds. We learned to turn every environment into our hunting ground, every tool into a weapon, every advantage into a trap for our enemies. Vrexkai finally managed to restore partial function to his tracking organs, but what he detected defied his understanding of predator behavior. Marcus's scent trail wasn't random or panicked like fleeing prey. Instead, it showed deliberate patterns that indicated careful planning and strategic positioning. The human was herding them like livestock, controlling their movements and responses with masterful manipulation. "This is impossible," the tracker whispered. "Prey cannot exhibit apex hunter behaviors. Natural law forbids such reversal." "Natural law," Marcus repeated, emerging from concealment to face both remaining mobile Krillians. "You mean the law that says stronger, faster, better-armed predators always win?" He gestured around the transformed cargo bay. "I just rewrote natural law." The knife in his hand was now supplemented by improvised weapons crafted from station materials. A maintenance tool had become a weighted club. Industrial wire formed a flexible cutting implement. Even his simple clothing had been modified with hidden pockets containing chemical surprises that could blind or disorient enhanced senses. Thrackmore broke free from the adhesive restraints through sheer desperation, tearing away sections of his own carapace in the process. His wounds were serious now, affecting both mobility and cognitive function as his enhanced biology struggled to maintain system integrity. But pack loyalty demanded one final attempt to save his teammates. "Face us with honor, human," he roared. "No more tricks or coward tactics. Stand and fight like warrior." Marcus tilted his head, considering the challenge. "Honor?" he asked quietly. "You were planning to hunt my species for entertainment. You carry human remains as trophies. You threaten to eat children." His expression hardened. "I don't think you understand what honor means." The final confrontation began when Thrackmore charged with everything remaining in his enhanced physiology. His claws extended to full length as biochemical reserves flooded his system with combat stimulants. For a moment, he resembled the apex predator his species claimed to be, a perfect fusion of natural evolution and bioenhancement, creating something designed purely for killing. Marcus met the charge not with retreat, but with a calculated advance that brought him inside the arc of those deadly claws. Human martial arts had been developed over millennia of warfare, against both human opponents and Earth's most dangerous predators. The techniques emphasized speed, precision, and the ability to turn an opponent's strength against them. The combat knife found its target with surgical accuracy, sliding between carapace plates to sever the primary nerve bundle, controlling Thrackmore's enhanced reflexes. The massive alien's charge became an uncontrolled stumble as his bio-enhanced coordination failed catastrophically. He crashed into a stack of containers with enough force to crack his exoskeleton in multiple places. Vrexkai watched his pack leader fall and finally understood the full scope of their situation. They hadn't encountered prey that fought back. They had walked into the hunting ground of an apex predator that operated by completely different rules. The human's weakness had been an illusion, his vulnerability a carefully crafted trap designed to lure overconfident predators to their doom. "What do you want?" the tracker whispered, his enhanced senses detecting the approach of their captor. Marcus emerged from the shadows, his appearance unchanged despite the violent confrontation. No dramatic wounds or signs of exhaustion marked his features. He looked exactly like the harmless human who had boarded their transport days earlier, which was perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. "I want you to deliver a message," Marcus said calmly, "to every predator species in this sector who thinks humans make easy prey." Vrexkai trembled as Marcus approached, the tracker's enhanced senses detecting chemical signatures that contradicted everything he understood about predator hierarchies. The human still smelled like an apex hunter in complete control, while Vrexkai's own biochemistry screamed with prey response markers that his species hadn't experienced in evolutionary memory. The reversal was so complete that his nervous system struggled to process the conflicting data. "Your pack leader is alive," Marcus said, checking Thrackmore's condition with clinical detachment. "Paralyzed from the neck down but alive. The nerve damage might regenerate given proper medical treatment." He looked up at Vrexkai with calm, dark eyes. "Whether he gets that treatment depends on how well you follow instructions." The tracker's mandibles clicked frantically as he tried to form words. His species had no cultural framework for surrender or negotiation with prey species. Krillians were apex predators who took what they wanted through strength and cunning. The concept of bargaining for survival with a lesser being was beyond his comprehension. We Krillians do not surrender to prey," Vrexkai managed finally. Marcus pulled out his datapad and activated a recording function. "Then I'll make this simple. You're going to tell every predator species in this sector exactly what happened here. How 3 apex hunters were systematically dismantled by a single human using nothing but intelligence and improvisation." He gestured toward Zarthok, still trapped in hardened foam, and Thrackmore, motionless on the cargo bay floor. "You're going to explain that humans aren't prey animals to be hunted for sport. We're predators who learn to hunt predators." Vrexkai's sensory organs analyzed the cargo bay, finally understanding the full scope of what had been accomplished. Every trap had been crafted from common station materials. Every weapon had been improvised from maintenance tools. The human had taken an environment completely foreign to his biology and transformed it into a killing ground more efficient than anything in Krillian military doctrine. "How?" the tracker whispered. "How does prey species achieve such dominance?" Marcus began cleaning his combat knife with methodical precision. "Evolution," he said simply. "Your species developed in environments where physical enhancement guaranteed survival. Bigger claws, stronger exoskeletons, enhanced senses, all advantages that worked in your natural habitat." He pointed toward Earth's location in the galactic map displayed on his datapad. "Humans evolved on a death world where everything was trying to kill us. We couldn't outfight the megafauna or outrun the apex predators, so we learned to outthink them instead." The explanation continued as Marcus began systematically dismantling his improvised traps, recovering materials that could be reused. "We developed pattern recognition that could predict predator behavior, social cooperation that let us coordinate complex hunts, tool creation that turned every object into a potential weapon. Most importantly, we learned to adapt faster than any other species." Vrexkai watched the human work, noting how efficiently he cleaned up evidence of the confrontation. "You planned this from beginning?" "When you board transport. I started planning the moment your pack leader threatened me," Marcus confirmed. "Humans have a saying, 'Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.' Your species has been hunting humans in this sector for months. That stops now." The recording device captured every word as Vrexkai was forced to acknowledge the truth of their situation. His pack, renowned throughout the sector for their hunting prowess, had been completely outmatched by a single human using basic tools and tactical thinking. The psychological impact would reverberate through every predator species that heard the testimony. "What of packmates?" Vrexkai asked, his loyalty finally overcoming his confusion. Marcus checked Thrackmore's vital signs again. "Medical teams will find them in exactly 90 minutes when the fumigation period officially ends. Zarthok will have polymer burns but no permanent damage. Thrackmore will survive if he receives neural regeneration therapy within 6 hours." He paused, fixing the tracker with a steady gaze. "That gives you enough time to reach your ship and send the message I want distributed. Fail to do this, and your pack leader dies while you're still arguing with Station Medical about treatment authorization." The time pressure was another calculated element of psychological warfare. Vrexkai would have to choose between pride and pack survival. With no time for consultation or strategic planning, Marcus was forcing a decision that would demonstrate human tactical superiority, even after the physical confrontation had ended. "What message do you want sent?" Vrexkai asked, his defeat complete. Marcus activated the recording function and began dictating. "To all predator species operating in the Outer Rim territories. This is a message from the human known as Marcus Chen, currently traveling alone through your hunting grounds." The formal phrasing was deliberate, establishing his identity and solitary status for maximum psychological impact. Every predator who heard this would understand that a single human had accomplished what they considered impossible. 3 Krillian apex hunters attempted to establish dominance over human prey in this sector. They have been neutralized using standard human tactical doctrine and improvised equipment. Their pack leader has been permanently disabled. Their hunting party has been disbanded. HFY flinched at each statement, the clinical language making their defeat sound routine rather than extraordinary. Marcus was describing the systematic destruction of apex predators as if it were a minor administrative task. Humans are not prey animals, the message continued. We are apex predators who specialize in hunting other apex predators. Any species that threatens human colonies or travelers in this sector will be considered hostile and dealt with. Accordingly, the warning was delivered, in the same calm tone Marcus had used throughout the confrontation. No bluster or emotional displays, just a simple statement of fact delivered with absolute confidence. Distribution of this message is mandatory for all predator species who wish to avoid similar encounters. Failure to acknowledge human territorial claims will result in escalating responses until compliance is achieved. Marcus shut off the recording and handed the data storage device to HFY. You have 87 minutes to reach your ship and begin transmission. I suggest you don't waste time questioning whether humans can track fleeing prey across star systems. The tracker accepted the device with shaking claws, his enhanced senses confirming that the human's threat was not empty posturing. Marcus's biochemical signature indicated someone perfectly capable of following through on any promise of violence. One final thing, Marcus added as HFY began moving toward the bay exit. Tell them that this was just one human, operating alone with basic equipment. If they want to test whether our colonies are defended by more than diplomatic protests, they're welcome to try. As the tracker disappeared into the station corridors, Marcus began his final preparations. The Krillian ship would be departing within the hour, carrying its defeated crew and their devastating testimony to every corner of the sector. Word would spread through predator communication networks faster than any human diplomatic mission could achieve. Establishing new territorial boundaries. Through the universal language of superior force, the lone human had accomplished more in one night than Earth's entire foreign ministry had managed in years of negotiations. 6 months later, Transfer Station Omega-7 had become something unprecedented in galactic commerce, a truly neutral trading hub where predator and prey species could conduct business without fear of violence. The transformation hadn't happened through diplomatic negotiations or security enforcement, but through something far more primitive and effective, the establishment of apex predator territory. Marcus sat at a corner table in the station's main commercial district, reviewing shipping manifests on his datapad while nursing a cup of Earth coffee. The beverage had become surprisingly popular among alien species, though few understood why humans considered the bitter stimulant essential for proper brain function. He appeared exactly as he had 6 months earlier, unremarkable, harmless, just another human trader moving through the Outer Rim territories. The difference was in how other species reacted to his presence. Where once he had drawn curious glances or predatory assessment, now he commanded a respectful distance that extended far beyond his physical space. Conversations quieted when he passed, and even the most aggressive species found reasons to conduct their business elsewhere when he entered an establishment. The HFY incident, as it had come to be known, had spread through predator communication networks with the speed and impact of a biological plague. The recorded testimony of a broken Krillian tracker, describing his pack's defeat, had shattered fundamental assumptions about galactic power structures. Predator species that had dominated entire sectors for millennia suddenly discovered they might not be at the top of the food chain after all. The initial response had been predictable disbelief. Several hunting packs had attempted to locate Marcus and disprove the claims about human combat capabilities. The Saurian death dealers had tracked him to a mining colony on Kepler-7, only to discover that their target had somehow anticipated their arrival. Station security found their ship's crew unconscious in their own cargo hold, stripped of weapons and marked with chemical tags that would identify them as defeated prey for the rest of their lives. The Vextar warrior drones had tried a more sophisticated approach, using their hive mind coordination to attempt a simultaneous strike from multiple directions. They had cornered Marcus in a transit hub on the edge of Confederation space, confident that their distributed intelligence and numerical superiority made victory inevitable. 3 days later, their drone ship was discovered drifting in space with its crew in various stages of psychological breakdown, their hive mind shattered by encounters with tactical thinking they couldn't comprehend. Word of each defeat spread faster than the previous one, creating a cascade effect that reshaped the political landscape of the Outer Rim. Species that had never dared to travel beyond their home systems suddenly found themselves able to explore and trade freely. Colonies that had survived only through isolation began establishing regular commerce routes. The mere possibility that humans might be monitoring predator activities had created a peace dividend that benefited everyone except Apex. Hunters. Marcus's datapad chimed with an incoming message from Earth's colonial administration. The text was brief and formal, but he could read the excitement between the lines. Outer Rim territorial disputes have decreased by 93% over the past 6 months. Predator attacks on human colonies have ceased entirely. Request immediate briefing on methodologies employed to achieve these results. He deleted the message without responding. Earth's bureaucrats still thought in terms of diplomacy and negotiation, unable to grasp that some problems could only be solved through the application of superior force. They wanted to understand his methods so they could replicate them through official channels, never realizing that the effectiveness came from operating outside any official framework. A commotion near the station's security checkpoint drew his attention. A group of young Krillians was arguing with station personnel, their mandibles clicking with agitation as translators struggled to keep up with their rapid exchanges. They were clearly new arrivals, probably unaware of the protocols that had evolved since the HFY incident. Marcus recognized the signs immediately. Young predators testing boundaries, looking for easy targets to establish their reputation. They had probably heard stories about the mysterious human hunter, but dismissed them as exaggerated folklore. Youth and arrogance made them dangerous to the stability he had worked to establish. One of the young Krillians broke away from the group and began scanning the commercial district with obvious predatory intent. His enhanced senses locked onto Marcus's location, and his compound eyes gleamed with the recognition that comes from identifying potential prey. The alien began moving in his direction with the confident stride of an apex predator claiming territory. Marcus finished his coffee and stood slowly, his movements casual and unhurried. He made no threatening gestures or aggressive displays, but something in his posture caused conversations throughout the district to gradually fade to silence. Other species had learned to recognize the signs that preceded what traders now called correction events. The young Krillian approached Marcus's table with obvious hostile intent. "You are human-designated Marcus Chen," he announced loudly. "I challenge your territorial claims through ritual combat. Prepare to defend false reputation." Marcus looked up at the towering alien with mild interest. "You're new here," he observed. "Otherwise you'd know that challenging me requires an appointment." The Krillian's mandibles clicked with confusion. "Appointment? Apex predators do not make appointments with prey." "No," Marcus agreed pleasantly. "But they do need to fill out the proper paperwork if they want their remains shipped home to their pack." The casual reference to death delivered in a conversational tone caused the young alien to step back involuntarily. His enhanced senses were detecting chemical signatures that his instincts screamed warnings about, but his pride refused to acknowledge the possibility of retreat. "I am Kextar of the Steel Talon Pack," he declared. "My bloodline has hunted successfully for 12 generations. I will not be intimidated by soft-skin trickery." Marcus pulled out his data pad and activated a recording function. "For the record, Kextar of the Steel Talon Pack has issued a formal challenge for territorial dominance. Challenge accepted under standard protocols established by the HFY precedent." The formal language was important for what would come next. Every species monitoring station communications would understand that another correction event was about to occur, providing educational value that extended far beyond the immediate confrontation. "Meet me in Cargo Bay 12 in 1 hour," Marcus continued. "Bring whatever equipment you think will help. I'll be using standard human field improvisation techniques." Kextar's confidence faltered as he processed the implications of that statement. Standard human field improvisation was becoming legendary among predator species, representing a tactical approach that could turn any environment into a weapon system. But his pack's honor demanded acceptance of the challenge. 1 hour, the young Krillian agreed. Prepare for proper education in apex predator dominance. As Kextar stalked away to prepare for battle, Marcus began making his own preparations. Not for combat, that outcome was predetermined, but for the message this encounter would send to any other young predators who might be considering similar challenges. The lone human had work to do, and the galaxy was still learning exactly what that meant. Within hours, another testimony would join the growing collection of recorded defeats that were reshaping interspecies relations throughout the Outer Rim. The age of unchallenged predator dominance was ending, replaced by something far more complex and far more dangerous: human territorial expansion disguised as individual wanderlust. Earth's children were spreading through the galaxy, not as diplomats or colonists, but as apex predators establishing hunting grounds among the stars. And they were very, very good at their job.